Drive anywhere in this area, and you'll see that West Texas is in bloom. For miles in every direction, fields are overflowing with puffy, wide bowls of cotton. Recent droughts have delayed this process in some areas, but in others, it's as full and pure as ever. But not for much longer. The crop is ripe, and soon it will be stripped from the fields and sent off for the next stage of its life. See, out here, farming is more than a lifestyle. It's a legacy. It's families for generations pouring out their souls in this space. Being a farmer is tough. It's gritty, difficult, hard work that's almost always uncertain. In some ways, farming today is harder than ever before, but recent advancements in technology and science are hoping to curb those challenges for the farmers our society relies on. I'd like to take you back to 4 years ago. A scientist and professor in Ohio is reading through a job description online. It's for the chemical engineering chair in the College of Engineering at Texas Tech. And it's crazy, but she feels in her gut that this position was created for her. It's like the description was describing her. It wasn't just the field of study that she was already thriving in. This position was in an agriculture region that would take her research to the next level, or better yet, to the very top. And the day she accepted the position, it would be the beginning of a historic journey. For her, for this university. It's October 18th, 2022. University President Lawrence Skuvenek is standing at a podium before a room filled with people inside the Student Union building. Behind him, a large video wall displays in big red and black words, State of the University. People have showed up to listen to the president give these yearly remarks.
Good morning. So thank you for joining us today. And
he'll cover things like enrollment, new faculty, recent growth within the university, and student success.
We must always keep at the forefront that we are here because of our students, more specifically to educate and empower a diverse student body.
His presentation continues as he talks about the record years for both advancement and research.
Another milestone was reached in August when the National Science Foundation awarded Texas Tech the largest grant in our history.
That grant was given to create a facility on campus called CASFER. It stands for the Center for Advancing Sustainable and Distributed Fertilizer Production.
Led by Dr. Jerry Body,
sitting in her office across campus in a white leather office chair with the CASFER logo printed on the headrest, former chemical engineering chair and current director of CASFER, Jerry Bate, is streaming this event. She's listening to those words from the university president. Jerry has spent years formulating the plan that Lawrence Skuvenek just recognized in his speech. She built CASFER to be a bridge, connecting more than 40 of the most brilliant minds in their field to Lubbock, Texas. Today, we dig in to share how this work could be revolutionary in creating cheaper, cleaner, more sustainable fertilizer production. We talk about how expansive and complex the impact will be in this bonus episode of Fearless. We're calling it Level Up. The CASFER grant, worth a total of $51 million, has captured the attention of scientists, researchers, farmers, and state officials, who we're about to hear from inside a room in the Maddox Engineering Research Center, or the MERC, which will soon be the home of CASFER. 1 week after the State of the University address, Texas Tech welcomed Governor Greg Abbott to campus to celebrate CASFER.
Good to be back. Like your tie.
Emerging from the door behind him are Lawrence Skuvenek and Jerry Bate.
Thank you all for being here. Be seated, please. We're very pleased to have you here today as we celebrate the award of a National Science Foundation award that made possible the Center for Advancing Sustainable and Distributed Fertilizer Production.
Now, before we get knee-deep in CASFER, if you have not listened to episode 2 of this season, Earth, Wind, and Water, do it. Then come back here, because I promise you it'll make more sense. Jerry is the brains behind it all. She's built a team of top researchers from Texas Tech and partner institutions, MIT, Case Western Reserve, Florida A&M, and Georgia Tech.
Today we spend a lot of money and resources making this nitrogen-based fertilizer. And not only that, we spend at least 7 times more trying to remove it from waste. So CASFER is going to change all of that because we are going to use that nitrogen from waste to enable food production. One of the things that is important is the affordable and sustainable nitrogen-based fertilizer for U.S. farmers. As you pointed out, today they spend over $21 billion annually in cost of fertilizer. So CASFER engineered system is going to stop that because we are going to deliver a fertilizer cost to the farmers that is affordable, sustainable, and will not depend on these externalities. This is a fantastic opportunity to lead the world to change agriculture for generations to come.
So I think you get a sense of Dr. Bottie's passion. Thank you, Jerry.
Her journey developing CASFER and discovering how to create a nitrogen circular economy started years ago. She's continued to cultivate the plan, made changes, trimmed the fat, sought out people who would make this project better, bolder, bigger. And when I say big, I mean $51 million big. $26 million in the first 5 years, with the chance for another $25 million after that. So needless to say, it requires a lot of staff, both on campus and beyond.
Hello.
Oh, hello. How are you doing? This is Yuri Roman.
So we called some of them.
Thanks for giving us a call
I
back.
hope you can hear me okay.
That's my colleague, Alan Ramsey. He's a writer in my office. Over the last year, he has been immersed in the developing story that is CASFER.
Trying to just get my bearings on what everybody is doing. I see you're the Thrust 3 lead on this.
We have each spent months poring over the CASFER proposal, having conversations with scientists and researchers, trying to figure out what words like electrocatalysis and multivariable dynamic modeling mean. I know, right? Hoping to understand so I could explain what CASFER is, what it will do, and who it will impact.
And if you were to explain to someone who didn't know anything about CASFER in one sentence what its purpose is, how would you do that?
Let me take a stab at your one sentence.
Yeah, and it is hard to do.
Effectively, overall, right, what we're doing in CASFER is saying that we want to make a nitrogen circular economy.
The idea then in very short would be to move away from a linear production of fertilizers to kind of a more circular use of fertilizers.
Usually I start by sort of explaining how we do things now very briefly. Somebody manufactures fertilizer, often with non-natural products, and then they sell it to a farmer.
Farmers put fertilizer on their fields so the plants grow, but about half of the fertilizer ends up being run off into streams. And therefore it goes into streams and then it goes down into lakes, and nitrogen and phosphorus excess in streams and lakes.
But CASFER is also much more than just making fertilizer. It's making a system.
Oh, absolutely. I think I have to give all the credit here to Jerry.
That's Yuri Roman. He's from MIT.
We can think about it from the national level, kind of like how to think about reimagining agriculture and, giving farmers like a little bit better control over the supply of fertilizers and how you deploy it and reducing the costs for that, to actually develop fertilizers that are perhaps a little bit cheaper and that you can have more control, or it's not as centralized as it is right now.
Speaking with researchers from the 4 partner institutions, it was really important for us in sharing this CASFER story. Jerry has spent years handpicking the most qualified, intelligent, pioneering researchers in their field. And the team that she's put together, well, it's nothing short of next level. I mean, this is the all-star cast.
And I think the energy that you are seeing from the people who you have been interviewing, it tells you why we had the right people on board. Another demonstration of when you had the right partners, they bring the best to the team. And so we were very excited. We put this planning grant together and we won it.
She says that she remembers getting the call that they had received that planning grant back in 2018. It sent CASFER in motion, gave it all the initial funding it needed to get it off the ground. Anyway, so she's in the airport.
And I come out of my stop in the airport in London, Heathrow Airport, and I turn on my Wi-Fi for the first time after all that long trip. And I say, oh my God, we had the planning grant.
Among the first people added was Roger French from Case Western Reserve. It's located in Cleveland, so a bit of a different landscape from West Texas. But as Roger explains it, the need for this kind of research has become imperative over the last few decades.
And Toledo has a watershed, and the runoff in the northern Ohio watershed into Lake Erie leads to a lot of nitrogen, phosphorus in Lake Erie. And then in the summertime, usually in August, we can get harmful algal blooms that shut down all the drinking water for the city of Toledo.
Contaminated because of this algae bloom in Lake Erie, so large it can be seen from space. The bloom, turning the lake a shade of green, is caused by runoff from farms and livestock pens and can produce toxins called microcystins.
8 years ago, the city of Toledo went days without water. Nearly 500,000 people were impacted. The city draws drinking water from Lake Erie, and the polluted water threatened that basic necessity. There were lines at grocery stores with hundreds, even thousands of people trying to get access to bottled water. It was a mess.
And so Amy Hardberger is another person she's an environmental lawyer at Texas Tech, and she's part of this work right here, where what we need to do is think about what are the federal environmental laws, what are the state laws.
My name is Amy Hardberger. I'm a professor at Texas Tech Law School. And
Amy is also the director of the Center for Law and Policy.
So the first thing I did, for example, was I created a spreadsheet that had a section for CAFOs and a section for wastewater treatment plants.
When she says CAFOs, it stands for Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations. This is an intersection for Roger and Amy. CAFOs are one of the things creating issues that contribute to the watershed pollution that Roger talked about.
And the idea is we need to see what, if any, laws apply to these people. So if I'm a transporter of waste and I'm taking it to a fertilizer manufacturing plant, what permit do I need? So it's as simple as that.
Kaylee Millerick is another part of this water equation. She's a civil, environmental, and construction engineer at Texas Tech.
Wastewater treatment plants, when they're done treating their water, they have to dispose of their water. And the water typically goes into a surface water body. And there's a permit required for doing that.
The way she tells it, she got a call from Jerry a couple years ago saying that their team was lacking in a water engineer and asked Kaylee to be part of this team. It was different than anything she was used to, but she happily obliged.
I am an assistant professor without tenure, and the majority of my projects involve me working very closely with one other person. And the last that I looked on the CASFER Slack channel, there were 47 names on there, and I think there was even more of just people who hadn't accepted the invitation yet. And so to be able to work with that many people is absolutely astonishing.
There's people on the project, me and others, that, we are, I think, designated translators, and any project like that needs that. Like I can't do her job. She can't do my job. That's why a good team is possible.
Many times scientists and engineers just want to work in the lab. And in our group, actually, we spend our time like setting things outdoors in the real world.
So, yeah. CASFER is responsible for bringing a lot of people together from a lot of different regions across the country, from different backgrounds of research. That's what taking an idea to the next level requires. Jerry says that she feels a sense of responsibility with CASFER, with all of her research. She knows that she has the ability to create change. She takes that really seriously.
That's how it feels, and that's what I feel is exciting. And I want to tell you this, I don't know if I ever said this, but I'm first generation. So therefore, the point that I'm making is, and I'm still explaining to my mother, she calls me Jera, that's how I grew up since I was a little kid, and she said, Jera. She speaks Spanish, she doesn't speak English. Why are you still studying? Come on, how many other PhDs are you going to get? But she does it, you know what I mean? It's hard for somebody who has parents, you're the first generation, to explain why you never stop studying.
I laugh when she tells me this. But the truth is, I couldn't be more relieved that Jerry will in fact never stop studying. That she's doing her civic duty, her humanly responsibility. What I hope you can see here is that there is generational, long-term societal change at work.
I think it's the good for generations to come. I mean, that transcends any other aspect I could think of. We just had an undergraduate student, he just joined Texas Tech, and he immediately learned about CASFER and said, I really need to get involved. So that's the type of power that something like this brings for generations to come. The generations today are looking for opportunities like this, that when they become engineers, they're being responsible and doing things that are resilient, sustainable, and truly circular to impact society generations to come.
"40 miles north on I-27, a thick layer of loose dust coats the top of Leighton Scher's boots. As he walks through his expansive field of knee-high cotton, the sun beams overhead, casting a long shadow that follows him, rippling over the blooming crop. His blue jeans are light tan and brown in places, from kneeling in dirt or tending to his cattle. He's a fourth-generation farmer. In fact, the field he's farming today is the same one that his father taught him to work when he was just a boy.
I got some pretty good memories of coming home from school and jumping on a tractor with Dad, and thought that was the coolest thing ever.
He graduated from Plainview High School in 2013, then attended Texas Tech with ambitions of becoming a cattle buyer. He also has a hidden talent that he thought he'd put to good use one day.
And so, I went down that route.
And he did that for a little bit. But the rich soil of these fields courses through his veins. It's made its home in his spirit.
And then you've seen what your dad's done, your granddad's done, and even your great-granddad might have done it as well. And it just kind of has this weird pull on you, and it's really hard to get out of it. And so you don't really want to either.
Leighton is what I would call an entrepreneur. He's big ag, that's a term he taught me, with cattle and about 3,000 acres of cotton, wheat, and milo. He also tends to about 25 different fruits and vegetables that grow in greenhouses and fields in his backyard. He and his wife, Jessie, sell those veggies at their pop-up grocery store in downtown Plainview called Frontier Grocery. It has beets, lettuce, the sweetest carrots that I've ever tasted, peppers, and beef, lots and lots of beef. A lot of crops require a lot of fertilizer. Leighton says it's generally about 125 pounds of fertilizer per acre. So for him, that's a total of around 375,000 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer that he uses in his fields.
The way we're fertilizing now really kind of isn't natural. We've kind of robbed the nutrients out, and every year we have to replace those nutrients somehow.
He's not part of the CASFER team, but he's the real-life application. And I want to be clear that while these two people have never met, Leighton is Jerry's greatest inspiration. He represents a group of people that she started doing this work for all those years ago. Before he even took over his own fields, she was plotting, discovering a way that she could change his future.
I would say our promise to the end user, our farmers, is to have a price of fertilizer that is extremely competitive and much lower than any price they have. So because of that, that's the inspiration for them to participate in this.
Leighton is young. He's witnessed the way that technology has changed this industry, and he chases after the next measure that will make farming better. It might just be the fertilizer that CASFER will produce. He believes in this business and in these people. He advocates for farmers, their process, their mental health. He says the farming world is smaller than you think, and that's what he loves about it.
It's not necessarily like the day-to-day monotony. It's not that. It's like when you go out, you check a calf, and you reach down, you tag him, and you watch him all the way through the weaning. And if you're fortunate enough like us, we watch him all the way, till they come to your plate. And that's something special about that. You watch that calf's whole life and make sure he had a good life and vaccinated him and kept him healthy. You fed him. At the end of the day, that's the good stuff. When you watch a cotton field that from just germination, when it pops out of the ground with 2 leaves on it, you're like, oh man, is it going to make it? We're going to miss this hailstorm, Farmers, especially everywhere, are struggling with a lot of mental health, and it's just because of stress of not only, is price going to drop a limit today, or is, your employee going to quit you the next day, or, you got a hedge on the line that doesn't work out, or, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that it's a struggle. But that struggle is also what pulls a family together and keeps you going the next day, and that's cool stuff too, and that's what you enjoy.
Jerry says that this fertilizer is already being produced in labs today. Over the next year, they'll begin testing it in crops. Jerry hopes that in year 4 or 5 of CASFER, they'll have a product available to farmers. If you want to learn more about CASFER, you can find information linked in this episode description. Fearless is produced by the Texas Tech Office of Communications and Marketing. It's written and hosted by me, Taylor Peters, and co-produced by Allison Hirth. Thomas Boyd is our audio engineer, and he edits this podcast. Fearless is a Texas Tech production. From here, it's possible. Hey guys, it's Taylor. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Fearless. If you liked it, make sure to like, review, and subscribe. And stay tuned. We are already working on the next season of Fearless.